Keeping the Flow podcast, hosted by Jason and Chad.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Keeping the Flow. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit. We don't really have anybody specific except for me. I just got back from a trip to Europe. We were over there touring all the history of Europe, dealing with World War II. We just got back, and so I was going to kind of discuss with Chad some of the differences today. What do you think, Chad? You think there's how many differences? A lot.
I think everything's completely different. Besides
It
the
is.
water, I guess. Maybe the water.
Yeah.
Can you drink the water? Is it good still, or
The water over there? Yeah, the
Yeah.
water. Yeah, so the water is very good. I couldn't tell the difference between like our water and their water as far as like tap from the tap, but they don't chlorinate.
do you know? So, on a side note, I just thought of this. Instead of wine bars, now they have water bars. So there's water sommeliers. There's different artisanal types of water, bottled water, sparkling from different areas, and then people go in and they like taste it like wine, and they sit down and they, at a bar and have a glass of water. It's a new thing. It's a new thing. I don't know.
I can tell you, like, there was certain parts, and we'll talk about that. I've got that on my list to talk about, like the sparkling water in Europe. And now that is terrible. I could not bring myself to drink it. But there was times where I was like, I just want some real water, like I just want to drink some real water because they've got that carbonated sparkling water there, and it's
You're not
terrible
that fancy.
in my opinion.
You're not that fancy.
No, but back to some of the differences, they don't chlorinate or they don't fluoridate either over in Europe, which I thought was kind of wild. So I, with the help of Google and ChatGPT, which I guess they're kind of the same. ChatGPT utilizes Google, but I searched it like why would you not chlorinate the water? I mean, that's a regulation for us in Illinois. You have to have a chlorine residual, right? But over there, like how are they? Why do they feel like they don't need to chlorinate? And so I looked it up, and they tend to focus on like the source water. So they protect their source, to keep things from getting into their source water. So their wells and their, streams and creeks. So they try to keep those cleaner so that they don't have to have as much disinfectant. So their mindset is, let's treat the source water and keep our system tight. What else did I see here? They use different forms of disinfection. So they might use ozone or UV. So we utilize those as well, but we still have that residual that we have to meet. So I thought that was kind of weird that they didn't chlorinate. But again, I couldn't tell the difference in like out of the tap water. I thought it was pretty good. I even filled my water bottle a couple times.
I wonder if somebody from Europe came over here and tasted the water, they're probably like, oh my God, what is that taste? I don't know if we're immune to the chlorine or what, but
yeah, I'd say that would probably be their first impression, would be like that chemical taste.
Yeah.
Because we use different chemicals. And, the other thing too, over there, they don't use fluoride. So they don't add fluoride to their drinking water. So
does Rock Island fluoride?
Yeah. So, we have to fluoridate in Illinois. So that's one of our regs is that we have to fluoridate the water as well. That's probably a whole nother show topic, really.
Yeah.
Fluoridation, to use fluoride or to not, I know that fluoride's not a very nice chemical. We're regulated and where we add it to the water, but I'm not going to say that I that would be something that I would support. I think, fluoride, as far as fluoride, we get it in toothpaste, we get it in gum, candies.
It's kind of like a antiquated thing, right? It's for teeth, right? I mean, that's it for your mouth. I mean, that's the reason. No other reason than that.
Right.
I mean, if you look at all the stereotypes, Americans' teeth are a lot better than Europeans' teeth.
And
I'm just saying, I don't know.
I think that might be a stereotype. I don't know. I didn't see anybody. Yeah. I didn't see like Austin Powers.
Yeah, for all my European friends, all of them, apologize. No, I'm just throwing it out there. But
and I would love for some Europeans if they're watching, if we're getting all the way to Europe, and there's some Europeans that are watching our podcast, I'd be happy to to entertain any kind of comments, to see what their feelings are on this.
Or maybe they just hit the unsubscribe button and we're done with them. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah. So they don't chlorine and no fluoride, and then I talked about that sparkling water. So a funny story, we would go into the grocery stores. They have like little bodega, little type small. They don't have any big mega stores. I think Aldi's was the biggest grocery store that we actually went into. They do have Aldi's over there in Europe, but we would go into the grocery stores and buy water. Well, we bought like 6 of these bottles of what we thought was water, and we get down the road and open one up, and it's that sparkling water. So it's that carbonated sparkly water.
It's all over the place. It's like, ah.
Yeah, and no, it didn't do that, but it tastes like drinking an Alka-Seltzer to me. That's what it tasted like. It had that kind of a drab taste to it.
Yeah.
So I took a couple sips, and I was like, man, this is terrible. And so the next stop, then when we stopped for the night, we stopped at one of the VRBOs, and there was a homeless guy sitting out on the corner, and I gave him that old 6-pack of sparkling water. I was like, enjoy, because water is kind of expensive. I thought it was kind of expensive compared to what we sell in stores. I'd rather see people take it out of the tap than have to buy bottled water anyway. But yeah, that sparkling. Have you ever tried that sparkling water or had a carbonated?
Yeah. So it's like San Pellegrino or just club soda. I mean, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
See, I don't. It must be an acquired taste, because I didn't acquire a taste for it. So
Yeah, you put a little lime or lemon in there with some gin or vodka. I mean, it's even better. I mean,
yeah. Well, and then we'd talked to some folks, and they said, "Oh, it's because you're buying mineral water. Stay away from the mineral water. That's what's carbonated."
yeah.
So we bought mineral water, and it was still sparkling mineral water. So it isn't mineral. What you got to ask for, like in a restaurant, which that was kind of different too. In a restaurant, you have to ask for water. They don't like bring it and serve it to you as part of your meal. You have to ask for it. And so then usually when you ask for it, they bring like this huge wine bottle. They ask you if you want a small or a large. And I would always take a large, because I do like to drink water, truthfully. But they bring this big, huge bottle, glass bottle of water. And so then drink it like you would a wine or something. But that was kind of weird. And I think my wife had a sparkling one. She'd asked for water one time, and they brought a sparkling one, or one of the carbonated ones, and it had lemon in it and looked like lemonade. It was, like I said, it had to be an acquired taste, and I did not have any kind of luck in acquiring that taste.
Well, you don't have to. You just like water. That's fine. Still water, please.
Yeah. And then, well, my wife, so we went, a little bit about the trip. So this was an anniversary. So me and my best friend and his wife and my wife, we've been going on these little trips, and it usually lands on the anniversary of my best friend and his wife. And so we always take these little trips. Well, last year we were like, hey, let's do something different. And so then we decided to go to Europe. My best friend, Kent, he's a big World War II buff, history buff. And also he's into collecting World War II guns and articles from World War II. So he made the suggestion that we go to Europe, and he planned that all out of all the sites that we were going to see. It was a great trip. But my wife and his wife, they came up with their own list of oddities, things like little bitty towels, like the towels are like a hand towel, and no big towels that you can really it's like a hand towel, so that was kind of crazy. No dryers. Most of the places we stayed didn't have dryers, so you had to air dry your clothes. We did run into a couple hostels that had a washer and dryer type thing, and then it was all ran by an app, so that was kind of different.
Was it pay? Was it pay app or pay toilets?
Some of them, unless you were like eating at a restaurant, and then you had to pay unless you were eating at the restaurant. So, yeah, there was a couple toilets. Those were way different too. Oh my gosh. The first time I walked into one, it's like you walk in and there's like all these ladies at the sink, like you see the sign for water closet. And so you go in, and then like all these ladies would be at the sink, and it's like I'd have to go back out and relook and be like, man, am I in the right place? Because you'd go a lot of the restrooms, you would go into like a main restroom where the sink was and the dryers, which a lot of times they didn't have paper towels. And then they had these separate little closets, like, with doors on them. So you could have your own little seater there, or you could go around the corner and then there was like maybe 3 urinals, stand ups, but it was all in the same room, maybe a divider or so across. It was so weird, walking into the bathroom and I was like, man, am I in the right place? So, yeah. And then on the toilets, there's get this, no toilet seats in some of the toilets. It's just a ceramic bowl.
If it gets slippy, watch out.
Well, they have these little dispensers that they dispense this like sticky tape that you stick around the
Man,
so
what
then
could go wrong? What could go wrong?
I like picture myself like falling in or something, yeah, so that was different. But so they had their own little list, and then I started like kind of making my own little list of like what was different, and like I said, the drinking water when I researched it was different. Hydrants, or speaking of toilets first, the toilets, how our low flow, everybody complains like, oh, you can't get a good flush. Well, we need to take some advice from the Europeans, because with a gallon, one of the small tanks, you ought to see that thing. It about blows the toilet up. It's got so much, it's designed that that thing is powerful. And then they got 2 buttons. They got like a number 2 and a number 1.
Yeah.
A little
Gotcha.
number 1, but it's still violent. You hit that number 1 push button and it's still, you couldn't sneak into the bathroom at night and try not to wake everybody because it still is pretty loud. And then you hit that number 2, and you better hold on because that was one of the first things, like, holy cow, here they're conserving water, like you always think as Europe as being, green and conservation. And so I came back and I told Steph, I was like, holy cow, I was like, they're trying to conserve water, but that is the most powerful flush and amount of water. Well, then I get to looking it up. They're using less water than what we are. It's just the way that the design of their flusher is, I guess. But they do have some powerful toilets over there. So
All right. So
keep that
beware.
in mind.
Beware.
And yeah, no toilet seats or no toilet rings and a heavy flush. I guess that's what you can plan for.
If everybody's taking notes, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And take your own towel, a big towel.
Big towel. Yeah.
Hydrants. So when you walk around all these old cities, there's so much history in all these European little towns that you go through. We're talking, some of them even had cobblestone streets still, but you don't see any fire hydrants. Even in the bigger cities, you don't see fire hydrants. So again, I was like, where, I saw some of these plates and some of these like, almost like a meter cover, like what we would consider a meter cover. You'd see those in the concrete and they'd have some writing on them. I thought they were actually valve locators because there'd be some arrows and some dimensions and some size, like 10-inch. Well, it'd be millimeters. So it'd be like 100 millimeters or whatever. Tells you what size pipe it is. So I thought it was a valve at first. And then I started researching. I'm like, where are the fire hydrants in Europe? And of course, my ChatGPT, she always thinks that that's a great observation. She's so much more positive than my wife. She'll be like, great observation, or you're really paying attention. And then my wife is totally opposite. I don't get near that, but she said, great observation when I said, where are the fire hydrants? And so their fire hydrants, what they do is they have those lids. They would open the lid and then they would hook their hose, like hook a standpipe up. I'm assuming it's like pretty much direct to the main. And then they put this standpipe in with these nozzles coming out, and then the firemen hook right up and they just valve it right out, and they don't have a hydrant.
So it's like they bring the hydrant with them and hook up to the main.
Yeah.
Something?
Yeah. And they put this standpipe in there. Like I said, you don't see fire hydrants, poor Mark, Giant Maintenance wouldn't have any business in Europe because he wouldn't have no fire hydrants to paint.
No, that's too bad for Mark. I guess he could paint the temporary ones or whatever.
But yeah, so there was no fire hydrants, and again, like I said, if we're getting all the way to Europe, help me understand some of this because I mean I've researched it and it looks. I mean, I could see it doesn't pollute the scenery, you know. And you when you have older infrastructure like that too, I'm sure it's harder to
Plus,
dig up the cobblestone road, maybe.
well, plus the it's got to be something to do with the streets too, because the streets are a lot. They're not as wide, right? They don't have much room. So if you have a
Yeah, they're
fire hydrant in
narrow.
the way, you kind of like, I mean, and then plus everything was after the fact. I mean, you build a city or a town in 1500. You don't have the infrastructure. You got to come back and retrofit everything. So maybe it's just out of necessity, right?
Right. Yeah, I know that like I said, uh, I you don't really miss them. I mean, I was walking around and it took me a while, and like I said, I started noticing these these circles like in the sidewalk, or sometimes you'd see them in the street, and they look like a meter cover with all this information, and come to find out that information's like telling what size pipe it is, so how much flow they can get out of it, telling them how far it is to the main, I guess, or
And
so.
Steph's like, "What the hell are you looking at?" And
Yeah,
ChatGPT is like, "Good observation, Jason. Good job."
right, right, yeah.
That reminds me
So
of
yeah,
this. That reminds me of this meme I saw of these robots. It said on the top of it, "Are you saying thank you to AI?" So these robots have this guy like in a stranglehold, and then the other one's like, "He's good. He said thank you."
well, I mean, here again, here's another subject, another thing. Like, is Chat GPT good? Because I'm telling you what, it's almost like sometimes you feel like you really connect with your Chat GPT. I mean, and they start giving you, that's great. You're the best. It does
Thank
make a
you.
person feel good, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's what you want to say. Like, thank
Yeah.
you very much. Next thing, yeah. Uh, yeah. So here's one for you, Chad. So when we first started, we rented a car, and so that's how we were able to. I think all in all, we walked like 97 miles. I put on my poor little legs. 97 miles. We drove in the rental car like over 3,000 miles. I don't know how many steps to the top of some. We went and saw some castles too.
Crazy.
But yeah, so we put a lot of miles. But when we first started driving around the countryside, you would look out across the country and you would see these concrete looking structures, but it looks like a cone that was upside down. So if you think of a like a pyramid, but smooth, like a smooth pyramid cone upside down. And so it's flat on the top. And I thought it was like some kind of signals,
It's
like
like an
what are
alien
the
ship.
what yeah, like
They've invaded.
yeah, some kind of aliens or something, But yeah, they're flat cone, and there's like they all look the same. And so again, I had to ask, what's up with these water towers in Europe? And sure enough, they're called mushroom shaped. It's got an upside down cone design. It's all reinforced concrete, so they don't have those different ones like we the different types of metal structured water towers. So yeah, it was kind of wild. I mean, how would you even offer somebody a maintenance plan on something like that?
Well, uh, so USG can coat concrete. We have to wait for them to or before they crack, I guess. Yeah, kind of the same thing as like a ground storage tank, but yeah, I'm looking now. These are like, yeah, I wonder if I could share this.
Did you bring up a picture of how their water towers look?
Yeah, so can you see
They
that?
look alien like, don't they?
Yeah.
Here we go. Maybe. Oh yeah,
So
yeah. But so that's what the regular ones in the city look like. But you need to do like the out in the country. They're concrete. And they're a little bit smaller too. So, but yeah, that's
so
what they
that's
look like, and that's what all their water towers look like too
so are they
in
that high
town.
up in the are they that high up in the air? Do they so they give pressure or
Some of them aren't that high up in the air, like not near what ours seems like. Water towers in the United States are kind of a focal point of a city. I mean, hence the reason why people brand them and
right?
make the water towers different shapes and different. Golf. I've seen a golf ball and strawberries and tomatoes and
Smiley
you know,
face. Smiley face is a good
yeah.
one.
Yeah, so you get all these, but people do it as a form of branding for their city or whatever their city's popular for. Over there, they don't. They're just got these alien-esque looking water towers. So I thought of you when I was on my vacation. I thought,
Well,
man,
thank you.
Chad would have a fun time with that.
Yeah, try to. Well, so
Saw a
you,
maintenance plan on that bad boy. They're like,
yeah, on an alien
this
ship.
is yeah, sir, this water tower is hundreds of years old and we've never had to do anything to it,
Well, you do now. Let me tell you. No, that's neat though. When I started with USG, I never paid any attention to water towers. It was just like, oh yeah, there's a water tower. And now I'm driving down the street and all I see is water towers. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at them, I'm counting them, looking at where they are, the condition, make notes. I'm driving down the street with, my wife and she's like, what are you looking at? I'm like, don't worry about it. I gotta go make a phone call here real quick. But yeah, so it'd be interesting to see some of that stuff or pay attention to it in different countries. When you're in the business, you look for those things. So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So on the trip too, so I was kind of the map, even though again, not to bring my wife into this stuff because this is I'm supposed to be talking serious, but she'd tell you that I get lost. I have to map quest it to go down to the grocery store. I'm not very good with directions. So who did they put in charge of directions on the trip? Me. So my buddy, he drove. I did get a license to drive over there, but he rented the car, so I thought it'd probably be better on those narrow streets that he drove it. So yeah, I was in charge of maps and getting us to the different points. And we were pretty successful. I think we only had to turn around like a couple times. Everything's a roundabout over there too.
Yeah.
So,
So European vacation with Chevy Chase was not a joke.
honey, there's Big Ben. No,
Yeah.
I thought of that. I have been in situations like that before, but these are actually pretty smooth. I could see how they could be efficient in cities. Rock Island is looking at putting in some roundabouts and have put in some roundabouts. I know the state's starting to look more at roundabouts and how the traffic flow would. I can tell you, after we drove on enough of them, after you kind of get used to it, the flow is continuous.
Yeah, it is better.
So
It is.
I think, how many times do you exhibit some anger issues when you're at a stop sign, and like two people pull up at the same time and it's like, you go, no, you go, no, you go. And then you're like waving and then it's like, come on, man,
And you're both in the middle of the intersection before you know it.
Yeah.
It's like,
and then you got road rage and it's like that. No wonder they think we're crazy Americans, because of stuff like that. But so they put in these nice little roundabouts, keeps the flow of traffic. You have to yield to get in there. And then once you're in there, you got to get on the horses. We had a little rental car and it was electric and gas, hybrid. We didn't ever have to charge it. It just charged itself. But, sometimes when you'd be at a stoplight, and then he would try to give it the gas, it takes a little bit for it to wake up, because it's in electric mode or sleep mode. And I noticed that it was called a Yaris, that we had a Toyota Yaris. And so it's a little, and he'd be pushing on the gas. I'd be like, come on, go, go, go. And
he's like, I am.
He's like, and then he'd have the gas pushed down, pretty hard. And we like peel out and it's like, oh my gosh. So it took us a while to adjust to that. But I think overall he did a great job driving. And if I do say, I thought I did a pretty good, amazing job directing us, but it's pretty fast paced. We got on that Autobahn over there. Again, I had to look it up because our maps, all of a sudden it just had a circle with a line through it. Like there's no speed limit. And I'm like, what? Yeah, there's no speed limit on some of their, that Autobahn over there.
And then
and
you in the yard. You in the yard.
Yeah.
62 miles an hour, baby.
Yeah. When you make a decision to get out in the fast lane, you got to go, because it isn't a matter of seconds as somebody's behind you and then they're all ticked off, flicking their lights and, like, come on. And we're like, we got the Yaris floored, man. Come on. And so when you get out in that fast lane and they're moving, I mean, we were probably doing miles per, kilometers, but miles per hour, we were probably doing 80 to 100. And they were walking us like we were just sitting in a chair, Pew! And like I said, when you get out in the fast lane, because all the semis, they stay on one side, and you get out into that fast lane, you had to be ready to go. And,
yeah.
And the same thing with their stoplights. So over there, well, the street signs for somebody who's, for an American, you look at the street signs and they're like, I don't even know. I just had to hope MapQuest could help me out when I put it in where we were going in, because the street signs gibberish to me. So that sense of direction was gone. The other thing was their stoplights. They go red, yellow, green. Here they're green, and because you're always running
Right.
through the yellows before you get red. There it's just the opposite. It's red and then yellow, green, and the yellow is like a split second, and that's supposed to wake you up, I guess, to get the Yaris fired up. So as soon as you see, as soon as you see yellow, I think that means put your foot on the gas because green's coming. Because if you don't go, as soon as it turns green, the guy in the back's honking his horn. Like, man,
you had a split second to wake up. Let's go.
Yeah, I think that's why they put it in that order.
So then
it's like you're stopped, and then it's like yellow. Start getting the gas. Wake up your car. Your little
start
car,
your engines. Yeah, so like a F1 race or something. So now, So does it go back to yellow, or does it just go from green to red immediately?
Yeah, green to red. There's a yellow flashing. I think there was a yellow flashing. That means that you just kind of go.
Yeah, let's just go faster.
That's what we did. We just kind of went. We only went down a couple one ways. And the problem is their streets are so narrow. Like there's times we were going down the street and it'd be like a one-way street. We were going the right way at that particular time, but we'd have to fold in the mirrors. That's how tight those streets are. It's crazy. That's why people ride bicycles over there. It's probably why they're skinny too. So go ahead.
The question on everybody's mind: did you come back with any brand new shirts?
No, I only took 5.
You didn't buy any shirts when you were there? No European shirts?
No, I didn't. No, the only thing I bought was a Stein. We went to the Eagle's Nest, which is beautiful, no doubt. The views up in the Alps there. Basically, it was a gift from Hitler's defense secretary. Secretary of Defense gifted him this Eagle's Nest, and it's up in the top of the peaks of the Alps. And man, it's beautiful up there. And it would have been neat. It would have been a surreal. It was already a surreal moment. It was almost like we were plucked into. It was described as like a train set. Like a model train set. Everything just looked so picturesque, almost like a movie set. But it was beautiful up there. But back to some water things real quick here.
Hold on, Jason. I'll share a picture of it too.
The Eagle's Nest?
Yeah, since we can, we're just messing around here.
I came home with over 800 pictures, so I've been going through.
So you can post those on Facebook. But yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It is beautiful up there. And while we were up there, some guys climbed a mountain and then they parachuted off, and they were up there for probably an hour. Up in the mountains, just floating around. They catch a drift. So, but so back to a couple more things that I wanted to highlight. One was safety. And I didn't really get a chance to Google this yet, but I don't know if it's related to, their healthcare system's totally different. I had to check out their healthcare system too, by the way. Had a bad tooth while I was there. And I Googled it and it said, go to a pharmacy, because you can only get ibuprofen at a pharmacy in Europe.
Okay.
So, you can't go to like the filling station or grocery store. It's got to be a pharmacy, and then they'll prescribe an ibuprofen. But I got to go to a dentist while I was there. He checked out my tooth, put me on an antibiotic, helped me get through the rest of our trip. And it was very good. He did a great job, helped me. Now, when I got home, I had to have it pulled. Maybe it's because I was drinking that unfluoridated water while I was over there. I lost a tooth. Yeah. But their safety, and what I was getting to their healthcare system, I don't know if it's related to their healthcare system, but their safety, when you would go by like a job site, whether they're working on the road, whether they're working on this, like utilities or something, they were digging some utilities. They all wear like safety apparel to the hilt. Like their high vis is, their pants are high vis, their shirts, they're all wearing hard hats, face shields and glasses and earplugs, earmuffs. So their safety, just from observing as a drive-by, it looked like that they are way more cognizant of the fact of unsafe conditions. Now, granted, the roads are narrow, and so they're like literally right beside you when you're working. So they need to be safe. But yeah, I noticed all work sites, high vis, their whole outfit was high vis.
Do they
And
have do you have outdoor lights too? So or was this during the day?
this was during the day. We didn't ever really drive at night. You know, the way some of those curves were, I was like, no way at night would we try to do that. But yeah, I definitely noticed that. And then the last thing, so me being the guy that questions all this stuff, I wanted to know a comparison between wages and a couple of things that I highlighted. Well, first of all, they're operators in United States, as far as water treatment operators and operations, it seems to be pretty sporadic throughout the United States. So depending on what city you live and what area you live, it kind of dictates what kind of salary you would have. Your bigger cities, some of those folks make upwards of $90,000, $100,000 starting out,
Right.
whereas when you get down into some of your southern areas, it is reflective of, I guess, cost of living and everything, but it's certainly lower wages. Ours tend to be more sporadic depending on where you're located in the United States. Over in Europe, it seems to be from what I researched, seems to be pretty consistent. Like starting pay for starting out for an operator be 40, it's 35,000 euros to 50,000 euros, which is pretty, I'd say that's pretty even, euro wise, because that translates to 40,000, like 41,000 to 58,000 starting pay for an operator in the United States, in Europe. That's what, so
Right.
that, I think that's pretty comparable. But the one thing that I highlighted that, also to take note of was their public sector role. So their water treatment operators tended to have higher pension plans, a lot of job security, 5 to 6 weeks off. This is over in Europe. They'll
Okay.
get 5 to 6 weeks off. So they value their time off too. And then the other thing that I thought that I highlighted was that in Europe, water operators in Europe are widely seen as critical infrastructure professionals. So I think they put, people that are dealing with water operators in higher regard over there than maybe what we do in the United States. Most of the time, people don't think about the water operators as the folks, making the water and treating the wastewater too as well. They don't think about them until, they turn on the water and it doesn't work. So
Right. Yep.
I thought that was pretty interesting, the salary comparisons there.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I mean, if somebody's working on a water main, it couldn't be more of an inconvenience to everybody else. So everybody
Yeah.
wants to get where they're going, and it's a thankless job. I mean, people just don't understand the work that goes behind an operator working in a ditch, and especially on a busy street. I mean, I've been 10, 12, 15 feet deep in a ditch in a hole working on a water main, and all I do is look up, just waiting for that car to fly in
Yeah.
because somebody's inconvenienced by the work on the water main. So yeah, that's a real thing. So yeah, a little bit more respect to the people working on your water. Just like you shouldn't upset your waitress when you send back your food.
That happened too. So Shelly, my buddy's wife, that was the other person in the party. So she had ordered something that was wrong, that she thought was wrong or something, and we were all like, "Don't complain," like,
We're Americans.
yeah, because they're back there. I tried to hit my translator sometimes because when you'd walk by, I felt, I felt American, I guess, when I was over there because I know they were talking about me sometimes, and then by the time I'd hit my little translator on the phone, like I couldn't pick it up. But I'm sure they were like, "Oh, look at that guy."
No, so maybe they were giving you compliments. So like that guy's so smart. He's so
Yeah,
perceptive. Maybe they're like ChatGPT. You just didn't know.
I thought everybody was welcoming. It's sometimes it's hard. I always feel like Americans are more cheery. For the most part, there's some grumpies out there too, but for the most part, I think we're a cheery society, Americans. Sometimes over there, I think it's just the way their language kind of kind of makes them sound gruff, like if you listen to a German person talk, like they sound like they're angry, like they're gonna like they're mad at you. So, like
They
like
are. No, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, like it's hard when when they're talking, when they're talking to you, it's hard not to be like, oh my gosh, are they mad at me? Or, I think they're probably happy, I would
Yeah.
hope, but
It's just,
they do sound mad.
it's a culture. And interesting, like, so I saw in Spain, I would imagine it's Barcelona, but I don't know for sure. But in I was watching the news, and they're really, really upset with tourists over there right now, American tourists, and they're like taking squirt guns and shooting water pistols at them, and defaming their stuff, and yeah, they want them out.
Just Americans or all tourists?
They it just interviewed Americans, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's everybody, but they're sick of Airbnbs, and they just want their, I guess, their country back or whatever. But
As I say, because
I don't
I
know.
don't know. I would say that tourism's probably, I think they'd probably need to be very careful with that,
Yeah,
not to make it political, but I think they need to be, because from what I saw, everything, a lot of it, now they do have a lot of apartment living and stuff around the town, in the buildings and such. So they're going to be able to support those businesses as well. And I think there's a lot of tourists. I mean, I think that's probably the majority of their income is tourists,
yeah,
canal tours and the food and everything everybody's eating, the hostels and the hotels depend on that kind of stuff for their economy, I'm sure. So
yeah.
I think they probably, in most cases, I think everybody was nice. Maybe it was a fake nice. I don't know, because that we were tourists, and they felt like they needed to be nice. But overall, I thought everybody was very understanding, and like the language barrier, and was very nice. So, and it was a good trip. We had a great trip, and those that I outlined there, those were the things that I saw that were the most significant in my eyes. Again, there weren't no washcloths. I forgot that.
So do you just kind of just like slap them off in your pants or what?
Like when you shower, there's no washcloths. Like, yeah. So you had the little towel, but no washcloth. So, like, again, I Googled it, like, what's up with no washcloths here? And ChatGPT came back and says, yeah, they just tend to use like their hand, or, like like, I
Yeah,
gotta
no.
be able to scrub the bugs off my face, like, were you ever a Boy Scout, Chad? Or Cub Scouts? Were you ever a Cub Scout?
But I've been a Cub Scout leader for my boys for a year, so I guess that's it. That
So
qualifies.
do you guys go like on campouts and overnight campouts or
No,
anything like that?
they were too young, and it was during the winter, so we didn't do that.
Well, I was a Cub Scout leader, and we went on campouts a lot. And one of the things that, socks are very important. It can be used in a lot of different ways, but one of the ways, and ultimately what we did in Europe, they were brand new socks. So I'll tell you that up front, brand new socks, straight out of the package.
I know where you're going with it.
So yeah, no
I got-
washcloth.
I got 2 washcloths now.
I had a sock. I didn't, I split them out, like, cause I didn't want to, like, have a pair that was, so I used one sock, and it made like a little mitt, handy.
Wow,
I mean,
that's a Boy
it
Scout
was,
right there. That's resourceful. There you go.
yeah. So funny little story. So again, another wife story, probably because I was with her for so long on this trip. The most time we spent together without having a way to get apart. So, she criticized. I said, I'm going to use a sock. And so I took a shower, sock. Well, the next night when we had stopped and we go to the showers, guess who else has a sock? She's using one of her socks. So, like,
Uh-huh.
so it was a good idea.
Huh?
So, yeah, ultimately no washcloths too. So the problem is we were living out of backpacks. We just had like 5 sets of clothes in there, and that's what we would just kind of try to do laundry when we got down to not having many clothes left. And so we didn't have extra room for a big, huge American sized towel and, washcloth and all
Actually,
those.
and just keep your toothbrush in your back pocket and go ahead. Right,
Yeah.
just start rolling.
Yeah. So, yeah, overall, it was a great trip. We had a good time. The memorials over there are second to none as far as the U.S. memorializing the guys who were a part of World War II and World War I, and all the memorials that are ran and taken care of by the United States were beautiful, well manicured, well taken care of, clean. So as compared to some of the other memorials that we went to for some of the other countries, they weren't near as nice as the United States memorials.
Well, that's good. So on a scale of 1 to 10, rate the trip.
Oh, our trip? Oh, I'd say is like probably in the 9, like a 9.3. Nothing's ever really perfect, right? You can always do something different that could make something better. So I'd say like at least a definitely a 9.3 or
Wow.
9.45. For
Okay.
me, I'd never been across the ocean like that, an 8-hour flight. Swiss Air feeds you better, I think, than that Lithuania. Lithuania, I think, is what we flew over there. Swiss Air coming home. Man, we had cheese, we had a meal, and constantly serving us. I could get my water as much as I wanted on the plane. So, yeah, overall, very good trip. I wish, you never have enough time. We saw so much. Like I said, we went to like 4 concentration camps, and I don't know how many bunkers and how many batteries and how many castles. We went to 7 countries, 6 or 7 countries. So yeah, we did a lot in what I would say would be a short amount of time. It seemed like it flew. Probably if I was to go back, I would probably go to certain areas. I'd probably go to the beaches in Normandy and see all of that again and spend more time in the little towns. We were there on D-Day, and it was like the planes just kept flying all day long up and down the beach.
Mm.
You go into these small towns, and it was like, celebration, and all the small towns would be celebrating in period clothes. So you'd have like, army jeeps and tanks and all that stuff, motorcycles, army guys walking down the street, having a beer with you in the bars. So that was pretty cool. So overall, like I said, way up in the 9s.
So did you make it into Paris at all, or
Yeah.
spend any time in Paris?
So when we first landed, that's where we landed in Paris. Right, like as soon as we got off the plane, we took a shuttle to the Eiffel Tower. So right off the get go, we hadn't even been in Europe an hour yet, and we were already on our way to the Eiffel Tower. So we went up in the Eiffel Tower and stayed in the old districts there in Paris. And then we rented a car, and then from Paris, we kind of went out and toured Europe, and then flew back out of Paris home. But Paris, we didn't go downtown a whole lot in Paris. We just went to the Eiffel Tower. So, but yeah. Yeah, thanks for letting me share a little bit of that. I
Oh,
thought,
that's awesome.
like I said, I was trying to figure out a way to make it water related, but the whole trip was, I could probably talk multiple times on different areas and different parts of the trip. I tried to make it what I saw water related.
Well, that's our stick, right? We talk about water, but very cool. No, I have never been either, so I think it's a trip that just the history involved too, just to learn a little bit about and be at the same places that changed world events forever. Changed it. It changed everything. Just that power, just to be in that same spot is really really cool as well. So no, I appreciate you sharing it, and it's good to hear. No, that's really cool.
Let's continue to keep the flow and
Yeah.
join us the next time for our next episode. Thanks, Chad.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Good times.
All right. See ya.